Well, it's more like a current landscape. I think that's a very good term, because at this stage there is no single therapy, and we've actually been lacking that for quite a long time. So what's happened during the last year or two is that we are now identifying subtypes of sleep apnea, or what is likely to be subtypes of sleep apnea cases, which give a bit more of a differentiated way, a view on how drugs potentially could be designed in order to be effective in sleep apnea. So that means that you can target more specific mechanisms, and that development has been ongoing for maybe 2-3 years at the most at the moment. So this really means that in a very short time we now have several drug developments ongoing, and many of these are within the realm of the industry, so we don't know exactly about all the data, where they're coming, where they're going, but the mechanisms, interestingly, are quite different on these new drug developments. So we simply have to wait and see as we gather more information by time. And that was a bit of the target of the session that we had this morning, which was geared towards describing these different mechanisms, but also describing the potential dilemma that we have when you are sort of first in class to develop a new drug, because sleep apnea is really a prime example of some condition that's been treated by mechanical methods selectively, and now suddenly we are moving into a complete new era with the drug treatments, as they hopefully would work reasonably well. And that means that there is no prior art. We don't quite exactly know how should we document them, what would be the proper endpoints, how much efficacy do we expect in order to be to motivate the treatment, what should be the symptomatic relief, what should be the comorbidity relief, or what should be just be sleep apnea relief. It's still quite an open question. And then finally we had 2 examples of various approaches towards therapy, and during those presentations I think it also was pretty evident that an ideal therapy in sleep apnea needs to go a little bit beyond the basic definition of just breathing arrests in themselves. So you don't selectively or only treat sleep apnea, you also treat part of the comorbidities in there, and there are also some new developments in that field. We're very exceptionally happy that this this development eventually is happening at all, because there have been so many attempts over the years to develop drugs in sleep apnea. Most of them, or I wouldn't say, if not all of them, have been disappointing. And simply now today maybe we can say that maybe they aren't as bad, it's just that we have the wrong cases in our trials and in our studies. So I'm really hoping to see that we have ongoing clinical trial programs for at least 2 or 3 of these drugs, and that development takes off quite soon, and that will also give us a bit more slightly diversified view of how these drugs may work and potentially could work, and benefit patients in the long run, of course. Well, for clinicians, I mean the practice, and I'm now exceptionally speculative because I'm sort of ahead of myself. First of all, we have to show that these things really work the way that we expect them to work. But if we assume they do, it will completely change the practice, of course, on that, because diagnostic needs will be there, but diagnostic tools are changing. There are new ones being introduced, and therapies could be completely different in case you treat people with drugs, tablets, medications, rather than rather complex mechanistic tools. And I'm not saying they're bad. CPAP is a fantastic tool. It's a fantastic therapy, and there are very few therapies like that which are so well tolerated in spite of the intrusiveness of the technology in itself. But we also know that long-term compliance with that type of therapy is very limited, when we are down to maybe less than 50%, and that's there's certainly room for improvements on other types of therapies there. Attending this conference during these 2 days has really increased my hopes, and it's very interesting when you go and listen to different talks and you see how bits and pieces are falling on their places, and when something starts rolling in one corner, it certainly involves everyone. So it's a little bit like a roaring volcano. So let's see where we go.